This is Keys to the Shop, episode 340, an Encore episode of 10 Reasons to Love the Customer. Well, hey everyone, and welcome to another episode of Keys to the Shop, where we give you insights, inspiration, and the tools you need to grow as a coffee service professional. My name is Chris DeFirio. I'm your host for the show. Super glad to have you along. Really quick, if you have not yet subscribed to Keys to the Shop, go ahead and just click the button subscribe wherever you happen to be listening to the show right now, and that way you'll always be updated with new content as it comes out. We always have a great lineup of guests and topics being covered on the show, and that will be really useful for you. Also, it would be great for you to share these episodes with a friend or with your team and spread the word about Keys to the Shop, and spread the information that our guests share and the information in these topics that we cover, such as today. As we talk about customer service and 10 reasons to love the customer, it's really valuable content, and it helps spread the word about Keys to the Shop. So thanks everybody for doing that. Now, I want to make you aware that Keys to the Shop also offers consulting and coaching for you and your business. If you're just getting started out in the coffee industry and need an advisor to help you find success, build foundations, and avoid needless mistakes, Keys to the Shop Consulting can help you. If you already have an established coffee bar and you want to scale your operation, or you have some specific projects or problems, refinement that you want to work on in your people, your operations, or your quality, Keys to the Shop Consulting can help you there as well. There's lots of different ways to do that, but I would love to talk with you more in detail over the phone. Just email me, chris@keystotheshop.com, and we'll set up a discovery call and find out whether working with Keys to the Shop Consulting is the right fit for you. Again, that email for Keys to the Shop Consulting, chris@keystotheshop.com. Now, today's episode of Keys to the Shop is brought to you by the Ground Control Cyclops Brewer from Voga Coffee. This machine is found in some of the world's best coffee bars because they want their coffee to be elevated beyond what the normal type of brewing equipment can do. That's what the Ground Control does. It unlocks the potential of your coffee with its innovative SCA award-winning technology, giving you control over an incredible range of flavors, and it'll just blow you away. It always does me. And this is not just the next level batch brewer. This is also a versatile piece of equipment that is a workhorse. It can make tea, batched iced lattes, batched cold brew, so you get this work efficiency and versatility along with a level up in quality. Check them out over at groundcontrol.coffee for more information. Again, if you're looking to unlock the flavor of your coffee and increase efficiency in your bar, then I think you should think about getting a Ground Control Cyclops brewer in your shop. Again, for more information, check them out over at groundcontrol.coffee. Today's episode is also brought to you by the Pacific Barista Series. This is the line of plant-based performance beverages that is preferred by the best baristas in the world because it is created for them, for their high standards in quality, and with a ton of feedback from them in the process. There is not one beverage in the extensive lineup of the Barista Series that has not gone through this testing process, and that's why it performs on the bar so well. It stands up to the heat from steaming, produces amazing silky texture, and it keeps the flavor of the beverage focused on the coffee. Your customers will love it. I know you will as well. Go ahead and check them out over at pacificfoodservice.com. Try it for yourself. If you're looking for the best in plant-based beverages to serve your customers, I really do think it needs to be the Pacific Barista Series. Okay, everyone. Well, today I wanted to give you a Encore episode. We are going to be going back in time, actually exactly a year to the day that we released in 2017, episode 19, 10 Reasons to Love the Customer. And there are a good number of reasons to love the customer. I focused back then on 10 because at that time there was an article published in, I forget which magazine it was, not a coffee magazine. It was one of these like BuzzFeed or whatever. It was talking about how, these are the things that baristas hate about customers, or basically how to make your barista hate you and things like that. We don't really need that trope of the nasty barista anymore, and we don't need to give ourselves any reasons or excuses to sort of jump on that bandwagon. I think as people, we just generally default to the negative most of the time. We catastrophize things, we forecast, the worst, and it's just kind of the world we live in, right? Both inside our own minds and in the world outside of our minds. It's really difficult to break away from that, and therefore, I think it's really healthy for us to focus on positivity. Because otherwise we can't trust ourselves to have a complete and accurate view of a situation. So if we're aware enough about how our default is to be negative, then I think that should inspire us to counterbalance that with positivity. And that's what this article, or this episode rather, is all about. And so I wanted to play you this episode from the past because it bears repeating. And I would recommend that you listen to it and think through, your own mindset towards the customer and whether some of these things are good to kind of keep in the forefront of your mind as you go into work. Maybe these are things that you need to teach your staff and put into your training material. Because we talk about hospitality a lot. We talk about serving the customer, but of course, they keep the doors open and they give us the opportunity to do what we do. That's the overarching reason why we should love them. But there's more than that. And you'll find out what those things are here in this episode. So without further ado, let's get right to it. Here now is the episode from back in 2017, episode 19, 10 Reasons to Love the Customer. Today, we are talking about something that you could file under the category of inspirational. 10 Reasons to Love the Customer. And maybe some of you have read this article, which is nothing new in terms of articles that talk negatively about customers or baristas. It was an article published by the Willamette Week out of Portland, Oregon, 10 Reasons Why Your Barista Hates You. And it just kind of went down the normal list of things that happen in coffee shops that are maybe slightly annoying, but using the word hate as sort of a clickbait type article. And it's been shared around. And this particular episode is kind of a response to that. In fact, it's exactly what this episode is a response to that, but more specifically, a response in terms of filling in a gap for what I see is missing in the conversation, and that is, what do we love about customers? What do we love about service and hospitality? Now, like I said before, this type of article is nothing new. Here's just a short list of articles like it that I found when I typed in "Your Barista Hates You" into Google. Why your barista hates you. 5 reasons your Starbucks barista hates you. 9 reasons your barista hates you. 12 annoying things customers do when ordering. 15 signs your barista hates you. And 1,000 reasons your barista hates you. The message, of course, these articles speaking on behalf of baristas, is that we hate customers. Essentially, these articles position themselves as providing an answer to a question. What does my barista think of me? And I believe the voice that speaks on the behalf of baristas to the world more often is negative. So all the talk about engaging customers and hospitality, the strides we make in customer service, being approachable, waiting for the buy-in moment, helping people have a great coffee experience, all of that stuff is thwarted by media that fills in a gap that's left by our silence toward the positive. These articles talk about the customer as some dopey, hapless jerk who just flouts our ill-communicated cafe code of conduct. And the image of the barista fed up with the problem customer is as old as time, and it's just a cheap shot. There are certainly things that customers do that are wrong. The customer is not always right. And there are things that customers do that are even abusive or harassment. It happens a lot in cafes and service work. So it's an issue that deserves real attention. So having an article like this talk about not bussing your table as an issue to hate somebody about, which first of all, we're not going to really hate somebody. That's a pretty strong term. We're not going to hate an individual for making a mistake. I would go so far as to say hating somebody at all is not what you want to do. The line between mistakes and just maybe not knowing what to do, or maybe even just being annoying. And abuse and harassment, it does need to be discussed, and it's a topic for another podcast. But I want to talk about the positive side of customer service today. Where are the articles talking about the joy of service? Our silence on the positives allows the stereotype of the elitist, annoyed barista to persist out there in the world, and people are misjudging, I think, a majority of us baristas as being those types of people. I would say this finally, that hospitality does not seek to first impose itself on others, but prepares for and offers itself up to be imposed upon, to serve needs. And because of that, needy people are welcomed by the hospitable professional and deemed a burden by those who are in it for other reasons. And we're not so fragile that we will hate. Again, we're not going to hate anyone for being needy or making mistakes. I believe there are far more baristas out there who are thankful and happy to serve customers well, and we do our work in hospitality. We welcome people, imperfect and faltering people, just like us, into our spaces. So right now, I think we should focus on what we love about service and unify around that. I would like to offer 10 reasons why I think we should and we do love the customer. So, number 1, and this is not in order of importance necessarily, they come into our store on a regular basis. So this seems kind of obvious, but I'm going to say it anyway. We would not be in business if it were not for people making the decision to spend their time and money in our stores. It makes our work possible. It would be pretty hard to follow a passion for making coffee or even consider developing a career around coffee if it were not for people spending money on coffee. And this industry of ours is born from this habit that people have of spending their hard-earned money in our store. Now, I will say this as well. The fact that many millions of people order specialty coffee beverages daily means that we have a job. It means that the coffee farmer has a job. The roaster has a job. Our industry exists because people decide to come into our stores, take the time out of their day, order a coffee, and walk away with that coffee and do it again the next day. So maybe we gripe a little too much about how people order or the refinement of their order. That the order exists at all is a reason, in my mind, to love the customer. So number 2, reason to love the customer, they stay for a while in the cafe and they get their work done in the cafe. Yeah, there's going to be people who camp out in your store. They take up table space and they buy one coffee and they nurse it. But we open our doors to the public, and the public has different needs. And one of the coolest things I think we hear is when customers talk about important meetings they take, books that they write, art they create while in the store. That, I think, is really cool. So the author who finishes her manuscript in that chair near the bathroom that orders a large cup of coffee in a to-go cup, are we upset about that cup being used for here? Or are we excited about the book being written and her patronage in our store? And the fact that often world-changing literature, art, degrees, opportunities are born in our cafe. And those things cannot be born in our cafe if people are just getting things real quick to get out of there and turn that table over again and again and again. So I feel like that's a real satisfying part of the job, is to see that kind of life taking place in the cafe. And it's definitely something to love about a customer. So number 3, they ask, what is good? Now, this question is something that we tend to balk at because it's not so specific. It's just like, now we have to think, God, man, I was hoping that you were just going to know what you wanted. And now we've got to work for your order and talk about our menu. And there is this kind of resistance that we have to explaining things to customers. But you know what? Deep down, if it were any other situation and somebody were asking us a question about coffee, but it wasn't under pressure of a line, we love questions. So we should let that love for questions kind of come up even in those stressful situations. We're not talking about having a conversation necessarily, but we love coffee. We love questions about coffee, and we love customers. So of course we would gladly tell you what is good on the bar. We get the opportunity to match the customer up with a drink that they're going to love. There are some questions that we can ask. We can get inside their head a little bit, like, do you want milk? Are you looking for something caffeinated, decaf, whatever? There are lots of things that you can talk about, but the opportunity to talk about our own preferences too is also there. So if they ask what is good, it's an opportunity to be like, oh, well, here's what I think is really good. Do you like something that's a little bit more fruity or bright, or do you want something that's a little more nutty, earthy, heavier? And now you've given your opinion, and that doesn't really happen that often that somebody asks you your opinion. So yes, it's technically easier for a customer to state their drink order with grave and exacting detail, making sure to use the local dialect and, saying please and thank you. But the customer who displays comfort enough to ask the simple question of what is good is essentially like saying, what's the special today? Or I'll have the chef cook for me. It's an open invitation in many cases. And I think it's a reason to celebrate that customer and say, we appreciate you and you giving us the opportunity to talk about what we love and to share it with you in a beverage. So there's number 3. They ask what is good. Now, number 4 on this list is slightly related. The customer talks about things they heard on the news about coffee. My parents do this sometimes. They'll send me an article about coffee that they found in a Facebook post or even a newspaper. And I used to, because I was like super snob, I would used to be like, ugh, I groan. Oh, you guys are so out of touch. And when you think about it, of course they're out of touch. Almost everyone in the world is out of touch compared to how many are in touch. I mean, even within our own ranks, how many of us are really experts in coffee versus how many of us are just learning? So yeah, it's expected. They don't know a lot about coffee. But a graceful response to these news bits and these half smirking questions about cat poop coffee are achievable if you're able to affirm the intent of the one questioning, believing the best, that they heard something about coffee and they thought to themselves, hey, I know a coffee person. I'll bring it up the next time I see them. I mean, really, they were thinking about you. Isn't that nice that they were thinking about you and they actually followed through with it when they were in the cafe the next time? I think we could learn a lesson on service from that. I think we should be grateful. They're chatting with us. They're wanting to connect with us. They're comfortable even to ask a question at all, because after all, so many customers are kind of browbeaten by this, hidden expectation of behave yourself in the line, ask for your coffee and move on. Let's celebrate the customer who thought enough of us to bring up a question about the thing that we do for a living just to connect with us. Now let's talk about the 5th thing, number 5, on why we love the customer. They are right there when we open and they don't want to leave when we close. So right when we open the shop, they're right in the doorway and you got to make the announcement, or they're like the last one in the cafe. So isn't it a compliment to you that somebody wants to make us the first stop of their day and that they don't want to leave when we're closed? So just so you know, I used to really hate this. I was the opener that would hide underneath a pastry case like, oh, I got to clean something down here. If I saw somebody parking their car, try to get the lights low in the front and maybe even turn the lights off so that I don't build this expectation like the customers, giving me the puppy dog eyes to see if they can come in. And so I also used to stack chairs all around people when we were closing the store right next to them, just so that they would get my passive aggressive drift. And, I was young, not really smart, and definitely didn't appreciate the customer as much as I should have. So I learned, though, the function of this place that I represent as a barista is one of service to people in my community. they are eager to get our coffee, or they are not so eager to leave the place that they're comfortable. So they're eager to get that coffee in the morning, to start their day with the coffee, or they just don't want that moment in our cafe to end. They feel comfortable enough to stay there in the coffee shop. I feel like that's endearing. I feel like we should be thankful for customers like that, because they're like the lifeblood of our store. They're like hyper regulars. They've really ritualized the coffee process, and they want what we have to offer. And my chair stacking and, morning shift hiding self didn't seem to understand that, but I certainly do now. When you arrive at work and the line is already formed, it's easy to feel burdened if you're imagining that people are a drag or are angry or whatever. Your presuppositions about the customer has a lot to do with your reaction to customers. So does the sight of customers trigger fear in you or joy? I think we've been steeped in this culture that makes us hear the phrase, the customer, and we react kind of with a snarl, like it has a negative connotation to it because we view them as a burden. If you view them as something other than a burden, like an opportunity or the lifeblood of your cafe or the one who's a big fan of your latte art, if you just take the time, exercise the discipline to really actually think about that as you get out of your car for the morning shift or whatever shift you're going to, you're going to start to see your perspective on this start to change. So before we get to the next 5 things on our list, I want to talk about our sponsor, Prima Coffee, a bit. Prima is a specialty coffee equipment supplier based out of Louisville, Kentucky. From the beginning of their company, they've set out to make the best coffee brewing equipment available to the general public. Their focus is on curating the best equipment for every need, from grinders to espresso machines, under-counter fridges, large and small. If it is a part of a coffee shop and you need it, they have it at Prima Coffee, anything you can think of. And they put a huge emphasis also on having the expertise to help their customers get the right gear to fit every situation. And I've known these guys since the beginning. I can't vouch for them enough. And when you visit the website prima-coffee.com, you can use the promo code KEYS10, that's KEYS 10, and that will give you $10 off any purchase you make over $75. Some restrictions do apply. Again, be sure to check out prima-coffee.com and use the promo code KEYS10. I know you're going to love Prima Coffee as much as I do. I use them here in the shops that I manage. And thanks, Prima Coffee, for your sponsorship of Keys to the Shop. Okay, so number 6 on our list of 10 reasons to love the customer is a bit of a doozy. And I know that it's one that probably is going to bring up a lot of imagery for you because you've dealt with this issue in your cafe many times. And that is, the customer brings their family in. And I think that that's really great. I think that's a reason to love them. Getting to see that they proudly show their family, their haunt, their space. We get to see their little ones grow, try their first drink at the cafe. So I think when a customer brings their family into the cafe, that is such an honor. I love when people do that because they're bringing their first place. There's the first place is family at home, and then the second place is work, and the third place is that place that is neither home nor work, and it's that community gathering place. When they bring their first place into the third place, I feel like something magical happens. And over time, some of the blessings that we get to see are things like seeing their little ones grow, seeing people get married, seeing people graduate. We get to see their kids take their first coffee drink or, whatever. It's just like it can be rowdy sometimes. Yes, there's various levels of noise that come out, but guess what? They've been graceful enough to us to withstand our maybe sometimes too loud conversations between us and a coworker that they couldn't escape, so they just kind of put headphones in politely. Or maybe they just didn't really like the music that was being played and it was really distracting because they were trying to work on something and they had to put headphones in. Like, let's not pretend that the customer hasn't had to put up with some level of disturbance generated at the hands of the baristas. So a cry, a shriek, or some Cheerios on the ground are not signs of impending doom. I think it's just a sign of life. It's maybe something raw, natural that we should be welcoming into our spaces. We need a little bit of reality in these coffee temples that we've created, because creating a cafe that's a third place, it's about bringing people in, welcoming them to the space. So again, maybe the cafe is in need of some of this family energy that's brought, and it may take some growing on our part to be able to not wince when we see, somebody get disturbed by a toddler walking up to a table. And I know for my own son, he has a hard time not introducing himself to almost everybody in the cafe. And so maybe I'm a little bit biased here, but if it's energy you want, families bring it in spades. And I think that's a reason that we should love the customer. Okay, so the seventh thing on our list of 10 reasons to love the customer is they ask for a to-go cup for the rest of their drink. Now, this is a tiny thing, but I find it to be pretty neat. So the idea is the drink is so good that they don't want to waste it. That's usually what I think that they're doing. They don't want that coffee to go to waste, and they're going to drink it. Maybe it's not the temperature that I would want to drink the coffee at, or maybe it's not a drink that I liked personally, but the fact that they want the experience to continue, I think is a kind of view that we should have. It's a positive view. It's a generous view, believing the best about the person. Now, the other side of this is something that I've done in cafes where I've been too caffeinated and I've got half a cup of coffee that I got as a pour over or whatever. And I don't want the baristas to think that I didn't like the coffee, but I also don't want to drink the rest of it. So I'll ask for a to-go cup sometimes just so that I can take it with me. And sometimes I'll just, I'll throw it out afterwards, or I'll try to drink more of it. But I don't know, maybe I'm weird, but I bet you there are some of you who have done this. Maybe you soak up the last of the espresso with a napkin and you throw it out. So you return an empty demi-tasse so that the barista is not like, oh man, was that over extracted? I don't know. They didn't drink half their espresso. But in either case, I think it's a nice show that somebody would want a to-go cup for the rest of their drink. They want the experience to continue. And that's a good reason to love somebody, is oh, you didn't have to do that. That's nice. Thank you. So number 8 on our list of 10 reasons to love the customer is they buy coffee as gifts. I think this is really one of the best things. So the coffee gospel is spread through people evangelizing for us through word of mouth to their friends, their family, their coworkers, their Facebook pages, or whatever. They want to spread the love. How great is that? When they get coffee as a gift for somebody, from our store, it means they want that person to experience the same thing that they're experiencing. And to us, the professionals, we know the hard work that went into every bag of coffee, from the farmer to the roaster to, everybody, all the thousands of hands that have touched the coffee. You bring that image to mind and think this is a proud moment, and it's motivating. So when your customer buys coffee as a gift for somebody else, or they buy a gift card or whatever, they are basically evangelizing their circle of people in their life, their relatives, their coworkers, their friends, and letting them know there's a business that roasts coffee or serves coffee that you should be a fan of too, just like I am. And I think that's a great reason to love the customer. Now, number 9, we love the customer who, even though they have to quit coffee, they still come in to get decaf or tea. Now, what are they coming in for if they can no longer get caffeinated beverage? Obviously, they're coming in for the ritual, and part of that ritual is the space and the people. They want to continue making your coffee bar a part of their life. We have a customer who didn't order coffee all the time. He ordered chai. He would get a chai all the time, and eventually the doctor said he couldn't have caffeine. And so I remember one afternoon, we were just trying all sorts of tea combinations because we heard this news and we were all devastated. Like, man, this is how do we make this work? And I think we found some approximation in combining different teas that were decaf teas to kind of match chai, something that he would still like. but he didn't want to stop coming into the store just because he couldn't have caffeine. And even though what we're serving him now, in what version of the tea combination we're serving him now, I'm not aware. But I know he still comes in, and I see his family all the time. We've seen his little girl grow up in the cafe, and it's a joy to see him and his family in there. Even though his drink order changed, he still came in because he wants the community. The space and the people are special to him. So when a customer still comes in, even though they're drinking decaf and even though they're having to switch to tea, you know they're there for something deeper than simply a transaction and a beverage. They're there for the experience, and they're there for the value that the culture of your cafe offers to their life. So finally, number 10, they offer us critical feedback. Often we don't get to hear this, but when we do, we know it's useful and it can help us grow. The fact that they've taken the time to express this is just huge. And I think that it shows they feel we can handle it, first of all. Second of all, it shows that they have ownership in this space. A cafe or a coffee bar is not simply created and then is static. Customers, just as much as staff, contribute to the evolution and the building of the culture and the experience that that coffee bar offers to future patrons. And so, of course, they're going to have some stake in the game. Of course, they're going to take it personally when something doesn't go the way that they want it to go, and they have some critiques about the experience. Let's not pretend that they don't have any skin in the game. This is where they spend time in their lives, time that they are not going to get back. These concerns that people bring up come in the form of phone calls or emails. Maybe people mention something to a barista. And sometimes they're hard. Sometimes it's hard because it's true and it's right. Now, not everything is right, and the customer doesn't always have to be right in terms of their complaints, but sometimes it's water off a duck's back. Other times it's like a dagger of truth, and it just pierces us, and we know that they are correct. But how we handle the receiving of critique has everything to do, once again, on our presupposition about the customer. What is our view of the customer and the nature of complaint itself? If we view complaint in any form as negative rather than an opportunity, then even if the customer is right, then we're not going to be able to see where we can improve and how a customer who offers critical feedback should be loved for it. Even if it's not for our own sake, like if you go to a place and you don't have any interest in that space as a customer, but you still don't want other people to have a bad experience the way you did, what do? Well, you go to Yelp. I mean, this is primarily what Yelp is for. When there's negative comments, you can at least give some benefit of the doubt that here's a person who's maybe not just spouting off, maybe they're really trying to help people avoid having a negative experience. Well, of course, they're going to be mad if they had a negative experience, but also they're saying avoid this because they're showing concern for people who are coming after them. They don't want them to have the same negative experience. So in this 10th thing, offering critical feedback, I think we should love people who offer critical feedback because they're giving us a service that we don't often get to hear. Choosing to have a generous view of humanity is fitting for hospitality and service. This is where we're supposed to be preoccupied with giving, not getting, and bringing to others rather than having people deliver to us. If we can think about people as wanting to help, even if it's a little hard to hear or just to help others, then we can certainly appreciate it for its value. And then we can look at that customer who offered us critical feedback and be thankful and love them all the more for it. So in review, 10 reasons why we love the customer. Number 1, they come in on a regular basis. They make our job possible. Number 2, they stay for a while to do work. Our cafe is often the epicenter of great art, literature, and life experiences that happen over time. Number 3, they ask what's good. They put it in our hands and they give us the opportunity to talk about coffee and custom fit things to them. Number 4, they talk to us about things that they heard about coffee on the news. They were thinking of us when they were at home. They thought, I know a coffee person. I'm going to talk about this with them. That's really sweet for them to think about us when they didn't have to, and we can certainly learn a lesson from that. Now, number 5, they're here really early or right when we open, or they don't want to leave the cafe. They have so ritualized this process of coffee that they want to be here early to start their day with it, or they want to end their day with it. And it's really an honor to be able to provide both of those things for people. And when we have a generous view of humanity, then we will welcome those customers all the more. Number 6, they bring their family into the shop. We get to see your family grow, graduate, get married. Life happens, and we get to see the most important group in your life enjoy coffee and grow together in our store. And I think a few crying babies or spilled drinks is a small price to pay for getting to see such a wonderful thing happen in our stores. Number 7, they ask for a to-go cup for the rest of their drink. And I say thank you, because that shows you love the drink so much that you don't want the experience to end. Or maybe you just don't want us to think that you didn't like the drink and you're thinking of our feelings. In either case, I say thank you. Number 8, they buy coffee as a gift for people. This is really huge because it's how our businesses grow. People share word of mouth. They're excited about our business. They want other people to experience it. They're proud. They have ownership in the business. They want other people to love our coffee the same way that they love our coffee, or to love our store the same way that they love our store. Number 9, they quit coffee or they have to drink tea, but they still come in. So even though their beloved drink is no longer there, they still want to come in because it's a ritual of theirs and they've learned to love you and your cafe, and they'll drink something that's not exactly what they used to drink just so that they can be near you. And that's real sweet. And number 10, they offer critical feedback. We don't often get to hear critical feedback, and when we do, we should think of it as a blessing because people are concerned about the experience. They show ownership in the space and the quality of the product or the service, and they've given us a gift, something that we can use to grow. And I think that all 10 of these things are reasons why we should, and I think we do, love our customers. So there you have it. That's just a list of 10 things, and I'm sure there are hundreds of things that you can think of that I didn't mention in this list of 10 reasons to love the customer. And what I would love to hear is, why do you love your customer? Why do the people who come into your stores make you thankful and grateful? I think it would be cool if you shared your thoughts about that on Twitter by using the hashtag #LoveMyCustomers, and just talk about what specifically you love about your customers and about serving. I just think that we could use a little bit more positivity, a little bit more love, and a little bit more thankfulness when it comes to our jobs as baristas and coffee professionals. It's easy to become hard-edged when you are serving the public because it's emotionally taxing, and there's only so much energy that we have. And it's that very fact, there's only so much energy that we have, that to me means we should purpose to set that energy toward things that are good and positive. And this is a great way to do it. Okay, everyone. Well, I really hope you enjoyed that episode. Kind of a flashback back to a time when Keys to the Shop was just getting started, and so many episodes have gone by since episode 19, but the principles of that episode remain true. Part of the craft of being a professional in coffee is not just about how we create beverages or even how we build coffee bars. It's how we build relationships, and that all starts with how we approach people internally, then how we externally approach them. This is how hospitality is formed. Any talk of hospitality that we have that really just focuses on what you do is actually just service. That's just customer service. There's a difference between service and hospitality. Hospitality transcends service. It has to do with the heart and the mind behind the work. And when we get our minds right and balanced, and not just focused on these things that this article mentioned in this episode, talked about, then I think naturally hospitality will start to flow and we will feel better about our work and better about the customer on a day-to-day basis. This will eliminate a lot of stress that we have by creating enmity unnecessarily between ourselves and the customer. So I hope that this episode was a helpful reminder. Now, speaking of things to love, one of the things that I love is that this year is the 30th anniversary of Coffee Fest trade shows. That's 3 decades of putting on what I think is one of the world's best resources for coffee professionals and coffee retailers specifically to get tools, resources, and the education and inspiration to really craft a great retail coffee experience. Go to coffeefest.com and find out when they are going to be showing up in a city near you. The next 3 shows are in Chicago, Los Angeles, then Seattle, and it is chock full of value. There are free or accessibly priced lectures, workshops, trainings. Of course, there's the trade show floor, networking you get to do with like-minded professionals, competitions, and you get to explore great cities with great coffee scenes. It's a rich experience that you and your team will absolutely remember for a long time. So go to coffeefest.com to learn more. You get 50% off, by the way, if you register and use the code KEYS. Anytime you register in 2022 for Chicago, Los Angeles, and Seattle, you can get 50% off your registration. Use the code KEYS. And also check out coffeefest365.com. That is their online learning platform where they are creating that Coffee Fest value all year long. So I hope to see you at one of these shows. Go ahead and check them out and register today over at coffeefest.com. And with that, that is the end of our show today, everyone. I really appreciate you listening to this show, sharing these episodes. Be sure to subscribe to Keys to the Shop. And if you have any questions or comments, feedback of any kind, send your email to chris@keystotheshop.com. And that's where you can also reach out about Keys to the Shop Consulting, chris@keystotheshop.com. Have an amazing day. And as always, I hope this episode has truly given you keys to the shop.